Hello everybody and welcome to the Real Housewives Edit. My name is Elle and I am here to talk about the two loves of my life, editing and housewives. Well, you guys, we are back in New Jersey. Wow, this episode got me back into the season. I don't know about you guys, but I was totally hooked, and mainly, let's just be totally honest here, the main thing that really hooks me about this season is Louie. I don't know about you guys, but there's just something about him when he comes on screen. I feel like he's a very controversial figure. I'm not sure about him yet. There's just something very interesting about all of the storylines for me that have to do with Louie, and he got more involved this week and I was kind of into it, and we'll talk about why. Thank you so much for watching my VPR breakdowns. Those are not done. I'm going to continue to cover VPR, but I was so inspired by this week's Jersey that I decided to head back into New Jersey, go over the Jersey Turnpike, and bring you guys something. Thank you guys so much for 5,000 subscribers. I told you I'm going to plan a live. It just hasn't worked out yet with my real work schedule, but as soon as I can figure that out, then I'm going to set up that live and we're gonna have a good little fun time together. Before we jump into the actual scene, there was one little part that I wanted to cover, a scene with Teresa, Louie, and Jen Fessler. As you guys might have remembered from before, I was really down on Jen. I really kind of brought it to you guys as she might be a major problem for the season, just because she is putting on sort of some like theatrics, I believe. In that one episode, she was the one who was kind of shoving the cheese in her mouth and trying to make a comedic moment. I think there's a lot of comedic moments that she's trying to create. However, there was one scene of this episode that I was like, okay, I love her again, which I tend to do. Just love them, don't like them, love them, don't think they're necessary for the show. Go back and forth all the time. But I loved her again in this scene because there was something really anchoring about her in a moment that I think could be kind of like a throwaway moment. Before I tend to just explain, and then we go into the show. I don't want to do that. Let's just hop right into it.
Yo, come on, Nate.
It's going in, baby. A lot of muscle. There we go.
There you go, see?
I love that last night, your man over here.
Okay, so they start this sort of like with the light moment. They're trying to show, obviously, okay, the party is just fun and light, you know, nothing bad is gonna happen, wink, wink, you know. They're cutting to the guys playing this game with the board and these little tossy thingies. And then they cut to this conversation, which is the conversation I want to talk to you guys about, with Louie, Teresa, and Jen. Let's watch.
It's like eager to make everything good.
Yeah, because you know what, I lost years with my sister because I was with like horrible women in my prior relationships. That's really what it came down to. I was just caught up in this thing.
Okay. So I think what I find so compelling about Louie is that he's got, to me, a lot of red flags. But I think at the same time, us as viewers want Teresa to win so bad. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I want Teresa to win. After everything she went through with Joe, after all those moments we watched, you know, him disrespect her, her beautiful daughters, like, I want her to do well, even though she's not a perfect person. I never said that, but I do want happiness for her. And when I see her with this guy, it reminds me of someone who's just got their first boyfriend. Like, that's the energy to it. I don't think that energy is healthy by any means, especially not to get married when you're in that energy. That is an energy that will go away. For those of you who have had relationships longer than 2 years, it's even more exacerbated with her because I do believe that Joe was like her first relationship ever. So this is like technically, I think, her second relationship ever. So it's almost like, you know, it just reminds me of someone who's not had a lot of like experience dating. That's why I say it's like a high school thing. And so she's so giddy and excited about him, but there's so many red flags. Just as if you knew a high schooler who had a boyfriend with tons of red flags, you'd be like, okay, well, let me teach you the ways of the world. But it's harder because she's a grown woman, successful, with these kids, and you know, so you want her to win, but Louie is like a walking red flag to me. There's so many things. And what I found just so funny in this scene and the way that editors cut it was you can hear that they manipulated Louie's dialogue right here.
Yeah, because you know what, I lost years with my sister because I was with like horrible women in my prior relationships.
Now, I don't think I have to tell any of you out there, but If you ever meet a man who says that all of his previous girlfriends were nightmares, run the other direction. Or even like a friend. If a friend comes to you and a new friend of yours and says, oh my gosh, all my past best friends have just been horrible people, remind yourself that who has always been left at the scene of the crime is the person standing right in front of you. Most likely it's not all those other people. So and when he says this, when he says, you know, all of my past relationships have been these horrible women, and here the editors kind of manipulate the dialogue, and then they cut to Jen and the look on her face was my look. This made me fall in love with her. I don't know about you guys. I just felt like I was like, oh, she's us. Like she gets it right here, and she's judging this moment as she should because she's a grown woman and knows that red flag from a man. And she's also like, oh, like I can feel like concern like sinking into her, especially because she just kind of big upped Louie saying, you know, he was trying to help the situation or whatever. I feel like all of a sudden, like the sail changed. So funny to me.
I was caught up in this thing with ego. But if you don't lean into your mistakes, you know, like,
pretty amazing.
no, I just, cause like, you know.
And like my brother would have.
So he says,
I was caught up in this thing with ego.
and then they cut back to her very briefly.
But if you don't lean into your mistakes, you know.
I've told you guys before, to create humor, brevity is the soul of wit. So it goes the same with editing. When they cut away from something really quick, it can tend to create a little bit of comic relief, and definitely they did that here on purpose. They cut to her very quick when he says, you know, I had some ego problems like they're in the past. They cut to her quick, like almost like us doing a double take, like, are you sure those ego problems are still behind you?
And like my brother would have called me, like she said, can you invite my mom along? I would have been like, no problem, Joey, I'll invite her.
No, I know, but she has the impression right now.
Oh my gosh. So they cut back to her again. Then they cut to the game. So they're trying to kind of create these lighter moments and show Joe kind of like, oh, he doesn't know what's happening while they're talking about him. That moment where they cut to Joe, you know, playing with the stuff. Remember, they could have grabbed that from any of the footage throughout the day. They just wanted to cut to Joe at that moment to kind of give the audience context of what Teresa was talking about. And also let us know that he's like, you know, happy living his best life while she's talking about him.
Now that her mother might have done something wrong to you.
Well, there is history between the whole family. Years ago, there was stuff.
You know, I can't listen to this because...
Okay. So Teresa says, you know, years ago there was stuff. They cut to Jen and she's doing that nod. I don't know. There's something about this whole conversation to me where she is definitely our voice of reason, the smartest person in the room, you know, obviously going along with what Teresa's saying because it's socially acceptable, but she is definitely, to me, giving nods to us that she knows how we're feeling. And honestly, like, it just made me love her. And then also the editors helped her so much with some of these funny moments and some of these reactions. So that was sort of my Jen Fessler redemption speech, if you will. Like I told you guys before, I didn't dislike her. I just disliked the whole like kind of theatrics of eating the cheese and stuff like that. But in this moment right here, I was like, if we can keep more of this like low-key Jen who's super smart, seeing through everyone and kind of like trying to hold it together in front of the camera, if that's truly who she is and if we can see more of that, I want her on the show. I need her on my show because I love a personality like that. So let's skip forward to the actual scene that I wanted to cover.
All right, let me go by Melissa.
Oh.
Okay, what's going on? I want to know what's the problem, because like everybody else is talking about all this.
Okay, just a quick note on these, you know, everyone's talking about Danielle and her situation with her brother. I am just like, I don't know why we care. I don't know her brother. I don't know why they're going so heavy into this storyline. I've read on blogs and I've heard on different podcasts people saying that they think maybe they're trying to set Danielle up to be the new Teresa, but I'm like, we don't need a new, like, we're all sick of the brother storyline with Teresa. Why would they bring in a new character with the exact same storyline? What are they trying to torture us? I was just like, this is so confusing why we keep talking about her brother. This is where it feels like very contrived for me because I honestly don't feel like anyone really cares that much about someone else's situation, especially if they don't know. Like if he was part of the cast or his wife was part of the cast, I could totally see it, could totally understand it, would still be annoyed, but could understand it. But the fact that we don't know him, I'm like, what are we setting up for? I'm very not interested in that. I just wanted to have a brief note on that.
Oh.
Okay, what's going on?
I
I want to know what's the problem, because like...
Okay, so This scene was very interesting to me because, again, Louie, to me, has a lot of red flags. I want him to be a great guy. I really, really want it. But the more I watch, the more I'm like, ooh, it's not feeling so good for me. Not feeling so good for me. But please write your opinions in the comments. I love hearing your guys' feedback. I've heard both sides from the comments, people saying that they think Louie's actually really good for her, and I agree with that. And then people are saying he's not good, and I sometimes agree with that. So I just love to hear all of the opinions. I especially love it because hopefully we're going to stay with Teresa for time, coming ahead. I think there's something with Housewives that we do kind of go along for the ride, knowing like either way, wherever this train ends up on the track, like it's going to be interesting, right? If they, live for, they live and love, laugh and love for the rest of time, that will be interesting to see, and we'll all be like, oh, we were wrong. Or if there's some, divorce happening in a couple years, we will hopefully watch it unfold on our televisions, especially because I don't think there's like a ton of like, kind of collateral damage because they have grown kids, and I don't know. All I can say is I'm kind of having fun watching this train, but this situation right here just has me so interested. He's talking to Melissa. He's trying to be the good guy, right? He's really doing this thing for me. Oh my gosh, I'm getting so into my opinion today, but I'm sorry. I haven't talked to adults all week. It's been very kid heavy at my house. So I am using you guys. I'm just staring at a lens, pretending you guys are here, and I'm talking to you guys about all the things I want to talk about. But he is really telling Melissa, he's such a good guy, and really, trying to fix the situation. But he's also doing this divide and conquer thing that I really hate. It's a quality that I hate in people where they, he's talking junk to Teresa about Melissa and Joe. And then when he goes to Melissa and Joe, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry about her. That is not cool to me at all. That's not cool at all. If he's going to talk junk to Teresa, then when he goes to Melissa and Joe, he needs to not say oh, I wanted to invite your mom, but she's so difficult. No, not okay. Not okay, Louie. But you can see that when Teresa's walking into the scene, the music kind of becomes a little bit softer.
Oh. Okay, what's going on? I want to know what's the problem, because
almost sentimental, almost emotional music. And that is to kind of show that, okay, maybe because we have Melissa and Teresa and Louie, Melissa and Teresa obviously have tension. Is Louie going to be able to kind of fix this? When they soften that music cue, we as an audience go oh, maybe this is going to be good. Maybe we're going to get some heartfelt stuff coming out.
It's everybody else is talking about all this.
There's no problem, babe.
No, they said there is, that you're upset about something.
Well, I was upset that you said you had issues with my mom or something.
I said there's a history there.
Okay, so as soon as she sits down and she says, is there a problem or whatever? And he's like, there's no problem, right? I'm just talking to her. And then as soon as we sort of figure out no, this is going to be a little bit of a fight.
Said that you said you had issues with my mom or something.
I said there's a history.
That sentimental music stops. And now we have no music as Teresa and Melissa sort of face off on this couch.
With your family.
So you're coming over to here and ruining a moment of me and Melissa?
Okay,
really give respect our space.
But Jackie,
no, but I don't care if God came down and said something to you.
But
it's
my
not fair what
point
you're
was,
doing.
was it going to...
So I didn't like this moment at all. This is my personal opinion coming from Louie. To me, I felt like the way he was kind of speaking to her and the way he did it so abruptly. And the editors, I believe, felt the same way too. They really brought the music in strong.
Really give respect our space.
But Jackie,
no, but I don't care.
Basically, you're ruining this moment right now. To me, I think she just kind of sat down and talked. I know he's probably foreseeing what's going to happen, but it's not like she came in swinging, and he just rolls into it. So the music rolls into it. She stands up, which to me was whoa. And I think even the editors were whoa, because they cut back to Louie to show his face as he's essentially yelling at his fiance.
Invite just one
Babe,
person.
I'm sorry. You're not making any sense what you're saying. Teresa, it doesn't matter what anybody's saying. You need to respect that I'm here talking to your sister-in-law.
They're
Okay, so the music is really ramping up.
Teresa, it doesn't matter what anybody's saying. You need to respect that I'm here talking to your sister-in-law.
It's very dramatic. It's almost like before a battle, you know, when someone's like doing the big speech on the hill. It's got that kind of feel to it. He's really like going into Teresa, telling her, you know, to stop it. Now, I understand. I can imagine that there's a lot of times talking to Teresa, she just starts to like move right through it and continue talking. And so you have to almost like, oh, would you just listen to me? But I, you know, call me old fashioned. I don't think any man, I don't care how passionate you are, should be really like this worked up talking to their wife. While they're having that conversation, they cut back to Melissa, who's sitting on the couch alone, almost like, what is going on? So the editors are really showing Melissa now on the couch where she's at. Why are they going to do that? Because they want to cut to this confessional.
sides to Louie. I know he definitely wants to look like, hey, I'm the good guy in this, I'm gonna fix it. But then he can't control when he's angry. Sometimes I think like it's the guy he wants to be, but then there's the guy he really is.
Can you please?
Okay. Personal opinion, I kind of agree with Melissa there. But from an editorial production standpoint, listen to the music. I'm just gonna play that sound piece again and just listen to it.
I know he definitely wants to look like, hey, I'm the good guy in this, I'm gonna fix it. But then he can't control when he's angry. Sometimes I think like it's the guy he wants to be, but then there's the guy he really is.
It's almost like they scored it to her monologue, right? She's going off about Louie. It's rumbling, it's going ahead like a train, da, 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 da. And then when she finishes her sentence, it's like, da, like a crescendo.
He really is.
Can you please?
It's just an interesting piece because usually they'll do that, like they'll do it sort of at the end of a speech, or they'll sort of vamp it, and then at the end they'll bring it up tight. But there's something here that just had, I don't know, it felt like it literally was going along with her words. And I really think that the editors did that to make what she said very impactful and stand out to us, because we just don't see that often. And when we do, it's usually something that's really poignant or that the editors really want us to listen to. They might either totally take all the music out so we lean in, or they put this sort of track behind it like, this is different, listen.
Can you please? I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm like,
No,
oh,
but
wait.
like I don't want that going on. That's bull.
What are you guys from?
Okay, so then the music stops, right? Crescendo ends, music's out. He's like, go. Teresa's like, okay, go. And then he sits down with Melissa and is like, almost like, this girl, right? I don't like it, Louie. I don't like it.
What are you guys from?
Sit down. You want to sit down? Talk.
What are you guys doing?
Just bear with me, okay? I went looking for your mom. I couldn't find her last night.
Okay, so Joe comes over and basically, I don't know, does the same thing as Teresa. And he's like, hey, you want to sit down and talk? This is that divide and conquer thing I'm talking about. Now, I totally understand that he knows Teresa better. He knows it's going to turn into a blowout if she comes into it, that she maybe not is going to be as listening. Maybe he just wants to talk to them too. I know all the things that you guys are going to say. There's something weak and conniving and slimy about it that I felt. And I feel like the editors agreed with me because how the music was out, and then it comes back in with that kind of soft cue again.
Okay. I went looking for your mom. I couldn't find her last night.
I almost felt like that soft kind of sentimental cue that we were talking about before is almost now being played every time Louie is trying to be like the good guy, right? So before it was kind of played when Teresa walked up, so it was like, oh, is Louie gonna help this? And then they changed it totally when he became a monster to Teresa. Now here we are again, he invites Joe into the conversation. We're at this sort of soft, sweet music again.
That I would love for her to come to our wedding, and I am sorry that all this confusion, and just understand that like I'm coming to you because sometimes mistakes will happen.
I'm not being judgmental. I think I was more hurt.
Yeah,
If I'm being honest, I felt
Okay, so he's really just trying to be the good guy in this situation. He obviously knows that Teresa can be, I just feel like he's being so disrespectful of Teresa just as a husband and as a partner, because he's kind of, it's almost like he's doing the thing like, us three, we're smart, we get this. I'm sorry there's confusion. we all know her. All right, so let's work this out between us. Like, almost like I don't want to be on the losing side. I can't even explain it. It has nothing to do with production, but it got me. That's why I'm covering this scene, because it definitely got me, this scene, this whole thing, where I was like, ooh, this just is not, it's not putting points in his column for me.
I think there's a lot of hurt going around. Even with you, you're hurt.
100%.
Just understand that she's hurt too, and I'm marrying her in like 31 days. And that, like, I want the peace.
But that's who's causing it all.
We went backwards.
So even that, Melissa's talking about her behind her back to Louie, and Louie's basically saying, like, I'm marrying her. Like, please, guys, don't. Like, she's trouble. Please, don't lump me in with it. That's the vibe I'm getting. The music is sort of doing that vampy thing again, which, if you guys have been watching my channel, we know when it starts to do that vampy thing, it's gonna go back up again, or they're gonna pull it out completely. And it just depends on what happens in the scene with what they're gonna do.
Like, my brother needs to get therapy because he keeps blaming me for everything.
No,
and
he's
it's not
not
just
blaming.
me. She has daddy issues. She needs to go get help.
That's not
What?
nice.
Jackie, shut the up. Get out of my face.
So what they're trying to do is cut in between these two scenes. Now, I do believe that these two scenes were actually going on at the same time, because it seems to make sense just linearly, like how Teresa walked away and now she's talking to those ladies, right? So basically they're cutting between Louie and the Gorgas, and then they're cutting to Teresa and how she's talking to the women. She says the thing about daddy issues, which I'm not the biggest fan of Jackie, but I was like, whoa, I mean, her father passed away at an early age, so for her to talk like that is like, oh, I don't know. I totally agreed with Jackie, but then the music starts to ramp up.
Jackie, shut the up. Get out of my face. Get out of my
When she starts yelling at Jackie.
Get out of my face. Get out of my face.
It's not your
Shut the
fault.
up. Get out of my
Don't
face.
you think that's a mean thing to say about somebody who lost their dad in a car accident at 16?
There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, everybody, like, let's calm
She's
it down.
attached to my brother. There's
Okay, so as Teresa's trying to dig herself out of this hole, let's be honest, the music is starting to do the battlefield thing.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, everybody, like, let's calm
She's
it down.
attached to my brother. There's like
Right before the war, you have the two sides, in a movie, think about a movie, two sides, they're about to go to war, and the music is starting to do that thing where you're starting to get excited. Ooh, what's gonna happen? But it's not gonna be good. No matter what, in a battle, no one wins. Teresa's definitely activated. Now, obviously, Teresa's activated. They've cut back to the Gorgas and seeing Melissa's eyes sort of like, what is even happening here? And so we're seeing reactions to what's happening to Teresa in this moment.
issues.
Melissa always talked about that she had daddy issues. Her father would go out all the time, and he was cheating on the mom. He was never home. So that's why she always had a leash on my brother.
My
Oh,
kids
God.
have daddy
All
issues.
right, let's take...
Okay, so they're really trying to fill in the story using the confessional. This is something they do all the time with the confessionals. A lot of times they'll do inner thoughts with the confessionals, someone will talk about what they were feeling but didn't actually say. But in this, it's really to fill in the story. So they obviously, in the actual scene, they had Jackie saying, I think that's rude, and Teresa's trying to explain herself. Maybe she didn't explain herself totally, so she's filling the story in the confessional, and the editors found it interesting enough to put in there.
Get down, let's take it down.
Jesus Christ.
You're pissing me the off. You're getting
I'm not
involved
even
with
doing
family.
any displaced anger.
Oh my God.
I think it was
You're lucky. I'm gonna.
So they keep cutting to everyone watching, including Melissa. And I honestly thought it was interesting because they got the Gorgas on the couch kind of, Melissa's doing this like, oh my gosh type of stuff. But you can see in that moment that Louie's mouth is moving. So I truly believe that they took that reaction of Melissa from another moment in the day where she was talking to Louie, and it probably had nothing to do with what Teresa was saying on the other side of the party, but they needed something where it looked like Melissa was almost hearing what's going on, but not totally involved. And so they grabbed that where she's going, oh my God, and kind of looking over. I think that was a totally misplaced reaction moment, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts.
This is therapy. This is therapy.
No throwing drinks.
A little rowdy, huh?
Well,
I'm gonna go see why these girls are screaming.
Okay, so then they have the moment, they cut to the guys, and then the music gets a little almost like clownish because these guys are just, you're supposed to kind of, when the guys come in and they're kind of the guys that don't get involved with the drama, it's kind of like da, 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 like it's kind of this like light, easy cue.
They're a little rowdy, huh? Well,
It's just very silly.
Saying somebody has daddy issues is not an insult.
This is crazy.
Can we talk like as if we're not going to go back in the past? Because I'm a good man, and I live with your 4 nieces.
Okay, so she leaves, Louie's doing his thing. Oh, I'm so, part of the men here. So sorry. Oh my gosh, these women driving me crazy, right? The music gets pulled out and they're about to have this intimate conversation.
Nieces, I wear your father's pajamas at night to make them feel safe and loving. Do you know that?
What's going on?
Yeah.
Talking about you.
Sit right here, sit right here.
Okay, so the moment we've been all waiting for, the music comes in totally clowning Louie.
I wear your father's pajamas at night to make them feel safe and loving. Do you know that?
And then they keep cutting back to Joe to make that moment feel a lot longer. I guarantee you he just said the line about the pajamas and then it was like quickly moved past. The editors knew that that moment was going to be impactful and very interesting for the audience to see. So they elongated it by having him finish the sentence about the pajamas, cut to Joe, cut back to him where he says, the thing about it being loving, cut to Joe. They're really creating space in that moment for comedic effect, which goes along with the music, and also just for kind of our enjoyment of like Joe's face.
Right here, sit right here, sit right here.
What about
Sit right
me?
here.
No, I'm gonna sit right here. What about me?
First of all, you're not in the right frame of mind.
Don't you dare
You're
fight.
arguing over there?
Don't you guys dare fight. Hold this. When you hold this, you talk.
No.
No, because you're gonna jump on each other.
That's what the
Right,
therapist
so
says.
make
That's
sure
what the
he gets-
therapist says.
Okay. I'm going to skip forward in this scene because in this moment here, it's a lot of the same stuff that I was talking to you guys before, but Louie doing his like stuff that he just learned 5 months ago in therapy. I'm uncomfortable with people teaching stuff that they just learned. If they haven't practiced it for, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, seen some major, like not just the first, because the beginning of the hill is always very good and then it gets harder and harder and then okay, I'm totally giving you guys so much opinion today. I'm sorry, I'm going to skip ahead in the scene because there was this one part I wanted to talk about.
Tired of this. I'm just saying, like,
Are we kumbayaing over here? What are you guys all talking about?
So the reason why I didn't ask you to be in my wedding, and I think
So I think it is kind of funny that Melissa is constantly trying to find where the drama is so that she can be on camera. She's always just like, oh, wait, let me go see what those girls are saying. Wait, let me go over here and talk to, it's almost like she's looking around at the camera people and like, oh, I see 2 over there. Okay, let me go see what they're talking about. No shade. I would probably be the same way, but it's just interesting.
I wanted you to say to Margaret, that's my sister-in-law, that's my future brother-in-law, shut the up.
You should have stuck up for him when Jennifer was talking about
I
him.
did.
No, you didn't.
You called my husband a crook. It was retaliation. You can get the Your sister doesn't even but
Okay, so they're really obviously showing these flashbacks to kind of bolster Melissa and Joe's opinion. Now, what I really think that the production and the editors have done to us is they want us this entire season to go back and forth and back and forth. Like this is a ping pong tennis match with the Gorgas versus Teresa and company. So I feel like last week or whatever week I covered last where the daughters were involved, kind of talking about the Louie situation and the Gorgas, I was like, oh, that's a Teresa episode. This week right here, I do believe that they're showing and bolstering a lot of what the Gorgas are saying, and they're kind of showing the Gorgas as a little bit more of a voice of reason and showing Louie and Teresa as being a little bit more kind of off kilter and unhinged. I just think that's a total production thing. I think they're just trying to get us to continue watching. They don't want it to feel totally one-sided because just like if you're watching a football game or something that I don't do, something, some game where you have 2 opposing teams doing something, if it's a total blowout, if in the first half, one team has 100 points and the other team has 0, you don't really care to watch the rest of the game. I've seen when I used to be in high school, I'd see my dad be like, oh, it's already done. So he'd turn it off, right? They don't want that. They want you to be going back and forth every single week to different sides of this. So don't feel strange if you feel like, oh my gosh, I keep like changing my mind. That's what they're trying to do, and they're doing it with the editing.
You see how you are? You're not understanding how you are.
I'm not understanding
Pointing
this.
fingers. That's what we're saying. I hate when you talk bullshit. Like, talk
Okay.
real.
So it is kind of true. Like Melissa brought up something that totally, doesn't work for Teresa's narrative. She's upset. She leaves. The music starts back in again. We're back in the battlefield. They're constantly just playing with us. They're gonna resolve it on the couch. Back in the battlefield, things are bad again.
Like,
See what
talk
I mean?
real.
All right, I'm going.
Yeah, she's wrong.
That's
She
it.
takes
I'm
off.
done.
That's
no,
Teresa.
this is it.
She's
I
not
know what I
wrong.
mean? You see what I mean?
Because I prove
See
her
what I
wrong
mean?
every time, and she gets so mad.
Babe, can you fix it?
Well, I will if you stay.
No, babe doesn't have to fix it. You have to fix it. This is your brother.
That was the last thing I really wanted to talk about with that scene. Obviously, it continues, the fighting continues, they don't really get anywhere. There was just this one moment that I thought was so interesting, and it was after the Gorgas left, and then Joe was coming back in to get Louie to move his car awkwardly. He was like, can you move your car so we can leave? And then there was just this moment right here where I was like, oh, we have another red flag in the column for Louie.
What are you sitting with Margaret for? Why? She's so dirty.
Joe, did you leave? Come on.
What are you doing?
Okay, so Louie's doing the thing like, hey, I'm being diplomatic, Joe, I thought you were leaving. I thought that was it. We're good, we're out of here.
Come on.
He's enjoying this now.
I know.
He's enjoying this now. You don't enjoy this.
Wait, did Margaret cause our whole family problem?
Okay. And I really feel like the editors just let the camera just roll on Louie. They didn't cut this much because it's very interesting. When he's facing Joe, he's like, Joe, don't worry about it, diplomatic. When he's coming back to the girls, he's talking dirt on Joe.
He's enjoying this now.
If he was going after Joe and being aggressive with Joe and then coming back and saying he's enjoying this, I'd be like, oh, that feels consistent. To me, he feels so two-faced here. It's honestly setting me a little off kilter.
She did.
Was it Margaret?
She did.
Was it Margaret? Want to dance? Bro?
Get off me. I'm gonna punch him in the face. Joe, stop, please. You're being a bit smart, because I got nothing to lose. You
That's the moment that I was like, whoa. So he's like, don't touch me. And then he comes back and he's like, I'm going to punch him. I was like, he's not settled. This is not a good situation with this man. I'm concerned for Teresa. I don't like it. I'm going to cut this off now because I've been talking for so long, but I would really love to hear you guys' thoughts in the comments. Please comment below. Thank you guys so much for watching, subscribing, doing all the things. And until next time.
Because I was with like horrible women in my prior relationships. I wear your father's pajamas at night to make them feel safe. Would love for her to come to our wedding, and I am sorry that all this confusion. Teresa, he's enjoying this now. I'm gonna punch him in the face.